Sound check presenter's laptop. Sound check presenter's laptop. Clerk laptop. Sound check clerk's laptop. Sound check clerk's laptop.
Ready to go? Good to go. Thank you. Good morning. I am now going to call this Planning Committee meeting to order for November 2nd, 2021. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and archived on the city's website. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. Members of the committee are reminded of the 5-minute time limit, which will be adhered to during this meeting. Members can submit another request to speak if they require more time to ask questions or make comments. And members of the public have 5 minutes to address the committee. We have 6 members in attendance right now, so we do have quorum. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda this morning?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are changes. Under delegation requests, we have added delegation request respecting outdoor dining districts extension, item 11.1, for today's meeting from Christina Geisler with the Concession Street BIA and Tracy McKinnon representing the Westdale Village BIA and the Stony Creek BIA. We have a written submission from Susan Braithwaite with the International Village BIA. Under consent items, we have added 7.3, the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee Report 21-008, and we have 2 added notices of motion, 12.1 for 412 South Coat Road Development Agreement, and 12.2 demolition permit for 270 Shaver Road.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, a quick question on the agenda. I heard Lisa say
Yep.
that 12.1, I also heard
Sorry.
the Shaver Road one, but I don't see it here.
Sorry, Councillor Ferguson, you're not seeing it where?
What under notices of motion? You got the South Coast Road Development Agreement.
Yeah.
But I don't see Shaver Road one as a notice of motion.
It is there. I don't know if you might need to refresh, but it has definitely been added to the agenda procedures.
Okay, I'll hit refresh to see what happens. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson, I'll need you to assume the chair. Councillor Danko's computer is restarting.
Okay, not a problem. So we just went through the approval of the previous minutes. Oh no, approval of the agenda.
Yep.
Now
So
we're
declarations.
on to declarations of interest, please. Anybody? Seeing none. It's moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Partridge to approve the minutes of the previous meeting of October 19th, 2021. And any questions, comments? Okay. Electronic votes up, please, folks. Please vote accordingly. Thank you. Lisa, you can let me know what the vote is and then we can continue.
Yes, I will. Just one moment.
Sure.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. And we're on to communications. There are none. I didn't hear any of the changes to the agenda. So we're on to delegation requests. So Lisa, I don't have my roadmap in front of me, so I'm assuming that we are going to be putting these delegations at the time that we look at the public hearing. No, not the public
It
hearing.
actually it naturally follows that we hear the delegations before the relevant motion. So we're
okay.
good. So
okay,
they're just
so we're
being
good.
approved for today's
So we're just
meeting.
being approved. Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Farr that we approve the delegation request. Any questions or comments? Please vote accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, and that carries 7-0.
And we're on to consent items. 7.1, public notices at infill construction sites, PED 21202. To put it on the floor, it has been moved. Oh, we got people on the phone, so I'm not going to pick any of them. Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Partridge. And Councillor Partridge, you're not muted, just to let you know.
Thank you, Chair.
No problem. So are there any questions or comments? Councillor Wilson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Acting Chair. If I could, please, this is of particular interest to Ward 1, and in my opinion, I think it will be in the interest of all members of this committee and council. If I could ask through you, if Ed could give a quick overview as we're moving more into the pattern of increased intensification within existing established neighborhoods. I think the notification around those practices and who to contact and why is going to be very important to our neighbors. So if I could ask Ed to give a quick overview if he is online, please.
Thank you. Ed, are you
Through-
available? Oh,
Through you,
Councillor.
Madam Chair, Ed is not here today,
Oh.
but George Catano is here and he can
Thank you.
provide an overview.
Yeah, through the chair, basically this issue, good morning. This issue's come up in the past as to infill housing developments and who to contact. And there's been concerns raised by the public and by the councillors. As that sometimes basically the public is confused as to who they should be contacting or what they should do if there's certain issues on site like dust, noise. So this idea here is that there'll be a notice put up on the property, a sign, and that notice will give information, a contact number. It will show the type of development that's going to take place. To be a schematic or a drawing showing the front and rear elevation of the building so they know that it's going to be 1 or 2 stories. And also we'll give them information on, general information on what's taking place and if there's any committee of adjustments were approved. It's basically a public notice to advise people in the area what's going on in their neighborhood and what type of things they should be looking out for or who they should be contacting in case there are any issues or concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Okay, thank you. The chair is back to you, Councillor Danko, if you're capable there with your technology.
Thank you, Counselor. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. And I will defer back to you unless Councillor Wilson, I'm sorry.
I do. Nope, no problem.
I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson's still going on. Hang on. I'll mute myself.
I know where your jet lies, so thank you very much. If I could continue, Chair, thank you, Acting Chair. To George, I perceive this to be a very positive starting point. If I read it correctly, it is both, maybe you can correct me, it will apply the signage, which has to be at a certain height. The make of the signage has to be able to withstand the elements clearly visible from the street. And it applies to both to demolitions when there is nothing going to replace it, if I understand, and or a new build or part of a build. If you could just clarify when the signage is warranted, when it kicks in, please, through you, Chair.
Yeah, through the chair, basically the sign will be required for a standalone demolition in an infill area or in a built-up neighborhood. And also when there's new construction taking place, or where there's a rebuild, demolition and rebuild, they would have to have a sign for the demolition and one for the building of the new building. So if they're just demolishing a building or a house in a built up or an infill area, they would have to put up a sign saying that there will be a demolition taking place.
Thank you. If I could ask another question through you, Chair, to George, is there still going to be a good neighbor guide forthcoming?
Through the chair, yes, we're currently working on that. It's in the final phases of it. And the guide itself will give you more detailed information as to the responsibilities of the builder and the neighbors in terms of who they should be contacting if there's any issues. Basically, it will just give you a lot more information than the sign can in terms of what the resources the city has or what enforcement the city can take if there are concerns raised on site, usually due to dust, noise, or construction activities.
Thank you for that. Through you, Acting Chair, my last comment on it, and I, again, very appreciative of this, but there are, as George just mentioned, many activities that go on in and around a built-in that do not fall within the purview of the building division portfolio. And those include things like a traffic management plan, signage for the site, notice of road closure or partial road closure, sidewalk closure, mud on street, sidewalk replacement. The actual site in and of itself can generate some challenges, but of course these extend beyond the site. And if I'm interpreting George correctly, those outside of site activities will be addressed in the Good Neighbor Guide. Could you confirm that or not, please?
Through the chair, yes, we've been in contact with other departments and divisions, both for public works and municipal law enforcement. So the Good Neighbor Guide will include information on mud tracking, sidewalk damage, if there's any concerns raised by the public. It's also going to be a document that we're going to be updating. So if there's anything we find that should be included in there, we will amend the document or the guide to include that information. But at that point, it is a pretty, it gives you a lot of information on what each division, like tree bylaws. So there is a lot of information inside that guide that will guide the homeowner or a neighbor or the public as to what they can do if there is any issues or any concerns raised during the construction or demolition of a building on the residential area.
Thank you, George. Mr. Chair, I think I've moved this, I'm not sure. Very pleased with this development and very much looking forward to the completion of that Good Neighbor Guide and continuing ongoing efforts within the city organization to plan and communicate in such a way that enables full transparency and access for our residents, particularly in our shift towards greater intensification targets. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, George, for your work.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and certainly, George, thank you for the information. Read the report again this morning because I read everything Sunday. But I think it's an excellent program moving forward, and I think it's great in resolving the issues with residents that drive by sites and don't know what's going on or questioning whether the rules have been followed. So with a sign being put up, they can have some comfort level knowing that, and they certainly will have a contact. So appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on 7.1? Not seeing any, so I'm not sure if there was a mover and a seconder, but I'll say moved by Councillor Wilson and seconded by Councillor Pearson. All in favor or opposed? Just waiting for me, I think. Thank you. That carries unanimously. 7.2, revisions to the pre-Christmas free parking program for business improvement areas in Ward 1. You need a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Wilson and seconded by Councillor Pearson. Thank you. Any discussion on 7.2? Councillor Wilson?
No, Mr. Chair, I just also, I know Tracy is here today. Just want to give a continuous shout out to the BIAs in Ward 1 and just to let everybody know that my understanding from the North Pole is that there will be an elf making their rounds again this season in the Westdale BIA area and in the Lock BIA area to try and share the love of those two great places and to encourage folks if they are shopping for any presents this season or to try and do so locally. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking forward to that. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor or opposed? Thank you. That is 7.3 is the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee report. I need a mover and a seconder to approve the 5 recommendations is in the committee report as amended. Moved by Councillor Partridge, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Is there any discussion? Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak to item 2, which is the heritage report. Alyssa Golden was at the meeting presenting the Waterdown Built Heritage Inventory, and that is almost complete. It's part of the secondary plan that is being done for the core of Waterdown. Alyssa and her team have been working on this for, I think we're coming up to almost 2 years now. And she's been able to identify 209 additional properties of heritage value throughout the core that we are going to add to the inventory list. And I'm so very pleased for the local heritage folks. They have also worked diligently, the Mill Street group. They've worked very hard with staff, and I'm thrilled. I can't wait till this comes before the planning committee and council, and we can finally put it to bed. The only thing I would like to raise, if Alyssa is on the meeting, is on the appendix. There are 2 properties listed, 3 and 4 Margaret Street. And through you, Chair, Margaret Street is going to be renamed to Vinegar Hill. And I'm wondering if that affects these 2 properties on the list, if we'll need to get the addresses changed. And that would be through Alvin Chan. Alvin, in fact, we just approved all that. I believe it was within the last month. So if I could just hear from Melissa what her thoughts are on that, please.
Yeah, I did see Alyssa in the meeting, and Alvin's also here. Alyssa, are you able? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, Alyssa Golden here, Heritage Project Specialist with the Tourism and Culture Division. Thank you, Councillor. Actually, I wasn't aware of the street renaming. I don't think that should be a concern. My question would be whether that renaming has already taken place, in which case we can amend the appendix now to reflect the new name. If not, if the change takes place after these are added to the register, after council resolves, hopefully approves that on the 10th, then we can just update the register with the appropriate street name after the fact. So maybe if Alvin's on and he can confirm the timing of that, then we can confirm the right approach to take.
Good morning. Yes, good morning. Alvin Chan, Acting Directors, Growth Management. Yes, the bylaws were passed, Alyssa, last week by council, as well as the week before. There was one that got held up. So they are in effect. Normally, these kind of things don't get circulated to Heritage, so I could see why that may have been missed on my end. So I will provide you a copy of the bylaws for your records and the official street name.
And I'm wondering through Chair if it might make some sense, and Alvin, maybe you can you can confirm or deny this, but should we have Margaret Street and perhaps a slash with Vinegar Hill after it, or in brackets, or the reverse of that? Because my understanding is that it is going to be some time before the street addresses are actually, the name is actually changed. Is that correct? Or what would be the best approach for this, in your opinion?
Through the chair to the councillor, the street name is official, given the bylaw was passed. I do acknowledge that there is a bit of lag time. The PW operations office already has put in the work orders, so I suspect it will be completed. I believe they said estimate usually about 2 to 4 weeks to get their crews out there to change the signs. But I can definitely follow up on that offline and get back to you. But the work orders have been submitted. GISnet, I know GISnet has been updated, as well as the emergency mapping, excuse me, has been updated to emergency services with the new street name.
Well, Chair, I'd just like to say excellent work by all around. I'm so impressed that within a very short period of time of the bylaws being passed, that the work orders are actually in motion. So thank you both very much for all your work on just all the projects that we've got going on in Waterdown right now, and there are many. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Farr.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Great. I just wanted to point out to item 3 and give a special thanks to Joanne and Patty Need Thompson. Many years ago, when Councillor Morelli sort of started kicking around the rec center, the seniors facility, in spitting distance from what was then Iverwin Stadium, now Tim Hortons Field, or AKA the Donut Box. These two sisters of the Thompson family, Jimmy Thompson, and this is the designation of Jimmy Thompson Pool, started making a good kind of noise. And I know the then Ward 3 Councillor Bernie Morelli was supportive of them, and so were many of us, including Brian McHattie from Ward 1, who sat on the Municipal Heritage Committee, and others on the Municipal Heritage Committee at the time, in listening to those voices of a couple of girls who grew up at Dad's Pool. Jimmy Thompson was a gold medalist swimmer. He worked for the city of Hamilton and worked out of that pool for many years, and certainly had two daughters who were really big in the swimming community too. And they wanted to not only maintain their father's name, but the heritage of that pool. And at the time, we weren't even in the design stages. And by the time we got to the design stages, it's my recollection that the question of a demolition was never the case. And of course, as we see today with that wonderful new recreation and seniors facility on King Street and Cannon Street, we have the preservation. It was incorporated in the project, and of course now we can complete the goal, which is to designate. I congratulate and thank the members of the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee, and of course, in full circle, once again, thank Joanne and Patty for their advocacy very early on in getting us to this point. They certainly played a large role, and it is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The only pool in the city you can play water polo without standing up in the shallow end.
That's right. What a nasty sport that is.
That's why I played it. Any further discussion on 7.3? Not seeing any. All in favor of the recommendations in the report? Just one vote? Yep. Okay. No, we'll do them all at once. Sorry, that was moved by Councillor Partridge and seconded by Councillor Pearson. So that's what I have written down. That carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 9 are public hearings and delegations. The public has been advised of how to pre-register to be a virtual delegate at the public meetings on today's agenda. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, must please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the zoning bylaw amendment application before us today, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So we have item 9.1, application for a zoning bylaw amendment for lands located at 365 Springbrook Avenue in part of Block 121 Plan 62M 1161 in Ancaster in Ward 12. Does committee wish to see the staff presentation on this? Not seeing any desire for that, so I need a mover and a seconder to waive the staff presentation. Moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Councillor Partridge, were you able to vote? Thumbs up, thank you. That carries. Nancy Friday with GSP Group. Nancy?
Yes, good morning, Chair and members of committee. I have read the staff report and we are in agreement with the recommendation. Just generally, this is a fairly simple rezoning from the agricultural zone to residential to allow for two lots on Chamber Drive, which is by Live Community will be building 2 additional homes there, and the retained lot will remain as is on Springbrook Avenue. So we appreciate the report and we support the recommendation.
Thank you, Nancy. Any questions for Nancy from GSP Group? Not seeing any. So I need a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation from the agent, moved by Councillor Ferguson and seconded by Councillor Pearson again. Thank you. That carries. Mover and a seconder to close the public meeting, moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Partridge.
Just a quick question,
Yes.
Councillor. Is no one registered to be a delegate on this?
No,
and I can't see anything in the reports where there's any objections either. Can staff just confirm that?
Kelsey?
I will confirm that there was no received virtual or written delegations.
Was just to the planner then, was there any delegations that come in during the when the report was circulated? Any written comments?
Through the chair to the councillor, Anita Fayback, Manager of Development Planning, Heritage and Design. No, at the time of the preparation of the report and since, and in between the report preparation and today, we have not received any written comments.
Okay, thanks very much, Anita. And Mr. Chair, I support this application. It makes a lot of sense when you see the plan and it's in a growth area. So I'm happy to move the report when we get to that.
Thank you, Councillor. So it was moved and seconded to public meeting. It was Ferguson Partridge. And then again, Ferguson Partridge, that there were no public submissions received regarding the application. All in favor or opposed? That carries, thank you. And then moved by Councillor Ferguson and seconded by Councillor Partridge again, that the report recommendations be approved as amended. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor or opposed? Two more infill units faster. Thank you. On to 9.2, we have delegation requests respecting the outdoor dining districts extension for today's meeting. So we have virtual delegations from Christina Gessler from the Concession Street BIA. Who's pulling that up? Oh, sorry, virtual. She's virtual being in the meeting, not virtual being a video. Is she present? Just check the. Okay. Well, we'll continue then. So our second virtual delegation is from Tracy McKinnon, who's representing both the Westdale Village BIA and the Stony Creek BIA. So Tracy McKinnon, she present? So I'm not seeing either of those in the participants for the meeting. Okay, so suggestion is we'll proceed and then we'll do another call for them later in case they're able to log in between now and when we finish this item. Okay. So we're going to postpone. We do have a written delegation. Do you want to deal with that now or just postpone the whole thing? Okay. So the suggestion is that we'll take 9.2 and 11.1 and we'll just move that to the end of the items for consideration. We'll come back to it. Do we need a vote on that? Yes. So we'll move it to after 11.2, after 12.2. Okay, so moving in a second to postpone those two items to after 12.2. Can we just get a mover and a seconder from committee? Moved by Councillor Pearson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Johnson. Thank you. So now we 11.2, Pier 8 and COPS Pier HIDA improvements. Councillor Farr, please introduce the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brenda Johnson. Pier 8 COPS Pier HIDA improvements, whereas a considerable amount of private and public investments continue on the West Harbour, including Pier 8, whereas the HIDA plays an historic and ongoing significant role relating to community building, tourism attraction, and greater investments. Therefore, be it resolved that the appropriate staff from the Planning and Economic Development Department reach out to Parks Canada regarding any plans or potential investment by the federal government into an enhanced entrance and gateway to the HMCS HIDA National Historic Site that would better integrate with the city's significant investment in the enhanced public space along Pier 8 and the COPS Pier. And through you to our general manager, Jason Thorne, who assisted me with this. We had a really great conversation actually with our federal rep and a longtime waterfront development supporter, MP Chad Collins, actually not too long ago about this, but really it's a conversation that started many, many years ago. And Jay, if you could sort of size this up in brief and how and why we're sort of seeking some coordinated effort with Parks Canada at this time, and ultimately, if you want to take into account where we're at with obviously COPS Pier as well and how that ties in nicely.
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, Jason Thorne, General Manager of Planning and Economic Development. Yes, I think that the direction is well timed. As council will know and the public will know, the city's been putting a heck of a lot of investment into the waterfront. And if you head down there now and you see the work happen on Piers 5, 6, 7, 8, all along the water's edge, the HIDA really does become sort of the next step along the waterfront experience as you go along the water's edge. So what this motion would be directing is that staff in my waterfront office in our department would be reaching out to Parks Canada to look at kind of how we have that natural extension of the new Pier 8 promenade, the COPS Pier Park, along and in front of the gateway into the HIDA. So we'd be looking to work with Parks Canada to see what sort of plans they might have in place in terms of that entranceway. And I can tell you in terms of Councillor Farr's questions about an update on the work on the waterfront. Lots of work happening right now on Piers 5 and 6, adding the new public space and boardwalks there. Those have been on track to open hopefully in the spring. With the Pier 8 Promenade Park, the COPS Pier Park, the work there is largely done, and it has been for a little while. We're held up a little bit by some supply chain issues, waiting on delivery of some of the lighting and handrail features. So hopefully our hope is that those will arrive very soon, which will allow us to open the park up soon. They are safety measures, so we can't open the park until we have those in place. So we are crossing our fingers that those items will be delivered soon and we can get them installed and have that new promenade park open before too long.
And Jason, just back to, and thank you, that's a wonderful update. And yeah, the supply chain issues are all over the world right now, quite obviously. But the HIDA, it's such a focal point, such a tourist attraction. It traditionally has been. We're going to bring even more people to the water's edge with these incredible investments. And so if you kind of look at the HIDA right now, I don't want to use the word imposing, but there's this, you know, it is obviously part of a Parks Canada property that includes Federal Reserve workers and military compound. And so there's this, you know, a larger fence. I think there's even some barbed wire at the top and those sorts of things. So part of what we have here is to try to work together with our friends at Parks Canada, the federal government, and try to figure out a way to maintain what they need to secure, but at the same time, not be so imposing, sort of incorporate a welcoming and sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Integrated piece as it relates to all of our investments that also are an attraction to the existing attraction that is the HIDA, correct? Through you?
Through the chair, that's correct. And for the HIDA itself, the ship itself, there's within the Promenade Park, there's the we call it the gantry pavilion, which is really designed to give full effect to bring the view of the industrial skyline of the HIDA, make it a really significant part of the park, the Pier 8 Promenade Park. But yes, I would agree with the councillor that in terms of the actual gateway to the park itself, the hope would be that we'd see some change in investment there from the federal government to kind of bring it to the standard, I would say, of what the city has been doing in terms of our public space on the water's edge. Currently, it is, as the councillor described, sort of mostly a chain link fence with some poured asphalt in front of it. So the hope would be that we can kind of extend that really well-designed public space waterfront experience as you go along the edge of Pier 8 and have that kind of same experience as you get to the gateway of the HIDA National Park.
Excellent. Thank you to my seconder, Councillor Johnson. I appreciate it, Jason.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'm delighted to see this. What I would like to suggest, though, is that we also reach out to the Board of Directors for HMCS HIDA. Just a small note, I was on the board for many years, and it's not the HIDA, it's HIDA. So I think the board itself may be working on some improvements. Certainly, they put the little pavilion up through partnership with the carpentry program at Mohawk College, and we were also able to have the little skiff restored, and I believe it's now housed in there. So that would just be my suggestion, is to reach out to the Board of Directors for HIDA and have a discussion with them. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair, I think
Thank
that's
you,
an
Councillor.
excellent suggestion, and I'll edit right after Parks Canada and the HIDA Board of Directors. I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you, Councillor.
Great. Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? I'm not seeing any, so that was moved by Councillor Farr and seconded by Councillor Johnson. All in favor? Opposed? I was just watching the movie Greyhound over the weekend with Tom Hanks, which features a World War II destroyer, very similar to HIDA, and I believe it was actually filmed on a destroyer in Missouri. It's a tremendous asset for our city, for sure. It carries. Thank you. Okay, so then we're going to go back to our delegations, 9.2. Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. My apologies. We'll go through our notices of motion as well. 12.1 is notice of motion for 412 Southcote Road. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a remnant lot from a subdivision called Southcote Woodlands, and there was a encumbrance put on this remnant lot at the rear because the developer at the time thought he could buy a neighboring property and demolish that home and then put 3 lots on by turning it 90 degrees and using this small piece to make that happen. And that happened on February 8th, 2017. But we've now determined that's outdated, and staff confirmed it's no longer required. And so the conditions have all been satisfied. So I'd like to move then, if I can get a seconder, that condition 56 continue to be deemed satisfied and that said restrictions be removed from the required consent agreement in order to allow the construction of a single family dwelling on the subject property. I can get a second, I just have some brief comments on it. Second by Councillor Pearson. So this is a remnant piece of land that's been
Hang
a
on.
real.
Sorry, hang on, Councillor Ferguson. We just got to waive the rules first.
Oh, you're right. I apologize.
So moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Pearson, and just give me the reason for waiving the rule.
Because they're very close to, just like the one at Public Works, they're very close to getting a building permit, and the owner's most anxious to move forward. And I'm so happy to see this remnant lot stop being a dump site for all the dump trucks that go around, and it actually put into productive use.
Thank you. So vote on waiving the rules is up. It's unanimous. Thank you. And I'll come back to Ferguson for anything additional.
Nope, nothing more. You get the resolution is there, and it's supported by staff. And feel free to ask staff any questions. It was put together by Alvin Chan.
Thank you. Okay, so that was moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any further discussion on the resolution? Not seeing any. All in favor or opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. 12.2, demolition permit for 270 Shaver Road. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is involving a lot at 270 Shaver Road. There's a bit of a story to it. I think I might try to waive the rules if I get someone to second, because we can't finish planning meeting at 10:30. So that's my reason. We may have a longer meeting in 2 weeks. So
Okay.
I think Councillor Pearson second waiving the rules.
Yeah, and then just again, reason for timeliness?
Because we can't finish the planning meeting this early.
As I appreciate that reason, I need a real reason.
Okay, the real reason is that this house has been left abandoned for 4 years. And if I can get them approval to waive the rules, I'll explain it further to you and the problems it's causing for all the neighbors.
Okay, thank you. So on the waiving of the rules. That's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, this involves a lot that it was bought by a well-respected citizen in our community to build a large home on it. And there was an existing home on it, and so he got all the necessary approvals to go in and renovate it. Well, it's a perfect example of a contract gone bad. The poor owner gave an order to a builder, and he went in and totally screwed it up. And it ended up costing him, he spent already trying to get through legal expenses and get through invoices that have been placed by the original contractor. So he's got $250,000 sunk into it. And right now, with the only thing he's going to be able to get is a demolition permit to take it down. And so the neighbors have been complaining to me for years about this because debris was blowing off it regularly and ending up in their yards. And so the owner is most anxious to get it down. He has a contractor lined up to do the demolition, but he says he can't afford to build his dream house for 5 years because he spent much money on the contract gone bad. So I'm just asking the condition be changed that instead of a new house being constructed within, I think it was 2 years, so that it'd be stretched to 5 years. The neighbor is okay with that. I've checked with him. But the building will be demolished so debris stops blowing off it. And he'll be maintaining the site over the 5 years.
Okay, thank you. So that was moved by yourself and seconded by Councillor Pearson. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. Sounds like a nightmare. All in favor or opposed?
You probably know the owner. Okay,
don't tell me before I vote.
Okay. Well, you'll have a lot of respect for him.
Thank you. That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We'll go back. Oh, Tracy McKinnon. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go back to 9 point, whatever it was, 9.2. I do see Tracy McKinnon in the meeting. So Tracy, if you're able to activate your microphone and your mic, and I believe you are presenting on behalf of the Westdale Village BIA and the Stony Creek BIA, and they're two separate delegations.
Yes, whatever's easier for you. I just have some points from each area I just thought I would like to bring up.
Okay, it's just for committee that technically these are two separate delegations, so 5 minutes each. But I'll leave that with you, Tracy. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And my apologies for I was held up in another meeting, but thank you for making time for me. So my name is Tracy McKinnon. I'm the Executive Director of Westdale Village BIA. And I just wanted to have a few comments, please, on the motion that's before the committee today in regards to the outdoor dining districts. I just wanted to, first of all, say thank you for bringing this motion forward and thank you for your support for a program like this. I just wanted to give you a little background and know that your decisions really matter to people. This program has been very instrumental in helping our businesses survive, and we're happy to see it come forward as a permanent motion. Although they may just mean a business to many people, it's not businesses really, it's the people behind the businesses. And I just wanted to thank you on behalf of them to know that their businesses have been able to survive throughout the pandemic. And in Westdale Village, we really took advantage of the program and made very large shared space, communal space for many of the restaurants and our customers to use. Sadly, we had to pack them up on Sunday because the program ended, but we are happy to see that it's coming back, hopefully for 2022. And we just wanted to thank you and let you know that it's extremely important in the pandemic recovery for businesses and for people to enjoy safe outdoor space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. Are there any questions from committee? Not seeing any. So I need a mover and a second. Well, let's just go back. I'm going to do two separate calls for Christina Gessler from the Concession Street BIA. So Christina Gessler, if you're in the meeting, just going to check the participants. I'm not seeing her in the participants. So last and final call for Christina Gessler from the Concession Street BIA.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, I do have a comment. Thank you, if possible.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just Westdale BIA being a very old village in Westdale, I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work of Tracy and her leadership. Extremely professional, always looking for ways in which to move forward and solve problems. A pleasure to work with, and actually an absolute honor to work with her and the entire Westdale BIA. I love the underscore that Tracy gave to it being a communal space because it is used by everyone and to the advantage of everyone. So thank you very much for taking time out here, Tracy, and putting it, underscoring the importance of this and putting it in terms that of these are businesses, but these are actually families and individuals and generations of people behind these spaces that are just trying to survive, and they're so important to our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I need a mover and a seconder to receive our delegation, moved by Councillor Wilson and seconded by Councillor Barr. Once again, Christina Gessler from the Concession Street BIA was not in attendance, and we did call on her 3 times and arranged the agenda to try to accommodate. And Councillor Johnson and Councillor Ferguson were able to vote. That's unanimous. Thank you. And then mover and a seconder to receive the written delegation from the International Village BIA. Moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion on that? Seeing any? Councillor Ferguson, were you able to vote? Yep, we got it. Thank you. Okay, so on to item 11.1, outdoor dining districts extension. Councillor Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this one is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Johnson once again, regarding the outdoor dining districts, whereas early in the pandemic, Council through GIC motions supported a local outdoor dining districts initiative to permit restaurants the ability to easily accommodate safe outdoor dining on public road allowances and other spaces, both public and private, whereas the outdoor dining districts initiative complemented and expanded upon the city's pre-COVID on-street temporary patio program. Whereas the council-born program proved to be extremely successful, with over 200 establishments taking advantage of the streamlined and cost-effective, safe outdoor dining spaces in 2021. Therefore, be it resolved that the appropriate staff be requested to report back to council with options and the necessary policy or bylaw changes to maintain the outdoor dining districts program on a permanent basis alongside the existing on-street temporary patio program. And I'm going to go to staff again. I'm hopeful Julia is with us. If not, I know our general manager once again can chime in. So if Julia Davis is with us now, could you tell me, Mr. Chair?
Julia?
She was instrumental and continues to be instrumental in this.
I don't believe
program.
she's in the meeting. General Manager
Okay.
Thorne?
Yes, thank you. So GM Thorne. So, you know, my third whereas is extremely successful, over 200 establishments. Maybe in your words, we worked on this, you know, a couple of years ago now, and as obviously, I think maybe the first motion, even before the mayor's task force and all the wonderful recommendations and implementations from those recommendations, this might have been our first attempt at getting ahead of you know, helping our small businesses, in this case, restaurants and bars, in the very early stages of the pandemic. And I should also thank Jason Cassis, who started the conversation with me probably, you know, a week after St. Paddy's Day 2020. And we all remember what a crazy week that was. So just how extremely successful has this program been? And if you want to allude to, you know, other cities in the province who followed suit, feel free, through you, Chair.
Yeah, so through the chair, the councillor's correct. We were somewhere around 200 applications that were received in 2021, similar number in 2020. And the councillor's correct. This was something that was put in place quite early in 2020 during the pandemic. The city already, prior to COVID, had what we called our on-street pop-up patio program that allowed those sort of pop-up patios in parking spaces on street. What this program did was expand those permissions for temporary patios to many other locations, both on street and off street, within alleyways. We saw them in city parking lots, in private parking lots, sidewalk areas. There was I will say businesses got quite creative in terms of finding ways and opportunities that they could take the dining experience outdoors through COVID. Yes, sorry, Julia is not here today, but yeah, I'd love to give a shout out to her and her team as well, because they fielded dozens and dozens of calls, and for the most part, we're turning around approvals within just a couple of business days. And we did hear from a number of businesses how important those outdoor patios were to their business, both when indoor dining was prohibited for a period of time, as we all know, and that was the only option, but also helpful when the indoor capacities were restricted, because it gave a little bit of extra dining space, a few extra patrons that they could have at their businesses. So it really helped out through a number of phases of the COVID pandemic. And I would say that we have heard from some businesses about even hopefully by next spring and summer, when we're past and through the COVID restrictions, still some interest in having this as an option for businesses in the area who want to be able to expand their patios, expand their business space through the summer, even if there are not COVID restrictions in place. So, as I said, the pop-up patio program, the on-street program, predates COVID and is already a permanent program. This motion would take a look at that broader outdoor dining program that was put in place through COVID, and we'll report back with some options to council as to how that aspect of it can be made as a permanent opportunity in the city.
Through you, Chair, not too many complaints, Jason. Over 200 of these things and very few.
Yes, through the chair, very, very few. I didn't do sort of a final check in terms of any complaints coming through by law enforcement, but I know sort of when we checked in sort of mid-year, we had not actually received any. So very, very few complaints. The business owners did a great job, I think, in terms of keeping the patios to the working hours, not having any noise impacts, litter, garbage, debris, any of those sorts of things. We saw very, very few issues.
Finally, through you, Chair, actually 2 quick questions. Do you happen to know, maybe Julia would, Concession Street's delegation couldn't get through, but the BIAs we've talked to in Ward 2 and clearly in Ward 1 as well with the delegation that did go through today. Concession Street on board, do we know, does anybody know if they were in favor or against this motion? Seems to me most of the BIAs are quite on board.
So through the chair, I couldn't say with any certainty. I did not speak to the BIA directly. I do know that actually the concession BIA was a bit unique in that not only did some individual businesses take advantage, but the BIA themselves have in past years had their own sort of BIA patio that was available to multiple businesses. But I would not want to speak for them here this morning.
Okay, and then to that, I guess, in a way, I mean, the downtown BIA was an incredible partner, and we incorporated early on, you know, the oversight if it was within a BIA and it was a street closure. So will this policy review look at, you know, mitigating costs, maintaining costs, assisting where applicable? All of this conversation started with actually not only a streamlined approach in terms of, you know, getting those getting the approvals to make it happen, but also mitigating costs. We were very cognizant of that need, particularly with the concerns we had during the pandemic early on. So can we be assured that this direction where we're requesting a report back, we'll also look at those options? I certainly know with my conversations with our director of the downtown BIA, that's an important piece that they'd really like to get a handle on. It did cost the BIA a good sum to run a very popular program on King William, but when you're closing a street and you're putting out those tables and chairs, and it's all borne on the backs of the you know, limited BIA budgets, they have a good question here. So through you, my final question to Jason, and then a quick comment.
Yeah, so through the chair, so pre-COVID, there were city fees for use of the city space, use of the parking spaces. So there was an application fee. Council did make the decision as one of the COVID relief measures that the Economic Development Reserve was used to waive all of those city fees during COVID. So that certainly did provide some significant savings for business owners who were taking advantage of the program. That said, yes, costs for the patios themselves, the acquiring the patios, acquiring the furniture, doing street closures, those types of things, many of those costs were borne either by the individual businesses or by the BIAs. So what we can do in the report back is we can identify what the city fees would normally be for utilization of the space. We can try to get sort of a bit of an estimated cost of what the businesses themselves are taking on in terms of buying or constructing or leasing the patios. They're doing them in different ways. We can include that information in the report, and then council can make a determination as to whether or not there's an opportunity there to further support the businesses and the BIAs through next year.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Jason. That's great. And I know Julia is so tremendous at communicating with the BIAs. And so I'm glad we got that out there on the record. Jay kind of alluded to it, Mr. Chair. We have seen over 200 of these patios. It's great. It really shines a light on how we can think outside the box and actually achieve in a cost-effective way, you know, attractions in this city. And we've done all sorts of things over the years, and the on-street patio program that's connected to this and actually is in the verbiage section is a really good example. Director of urban renewal and myself and Councillor Green worked on this one, and at the time, a lot of people said, "What are you going to do? You're going to take metered spots off the street and put these patios in?" Well, you know, those pop-up patios now are actually big business. I just watched the dismantling on the weekend, actually, along James Street North, and talked to the guys, and they're doing big business. A born in Stony Creek company with all kinds of new employees, and doing the same in many other cities throughout Southern Ontario. So we've actually helped with, from an economic development perspective, growing a very popular and expeditiously growing business. But the creativity, I just wanted to conclude by thanking all of those businesses who got very creative with.
Alvin, your mic is live.
I thought maybe Alvin, I'd just finish and then you can jump on. I'm sure you're also pumped up about this, Alvin. I just want to say thank you, because between the buildings that Jay was talking about, the back of buildings, we had really creative patios and laneways, and you know, some were shady, some were put smartly in the sun, or both. And I also want to recognize all those strip plazas out in some of the wards in the suburban areas. You know, those parking lots had pretty exciting makeovers too, and a whole lot of these over 200 establishments got creative with those patios. They created an attraction. And as far as the aesthetics go, whether it's a strip mall or a Barton Street hipster joint or anything in between, it really did become a bit of the talk of the town. And I know for a fact, just from talking to MPP Skelly, it was something that we did very early on that was adopted even by the province and supported by the province and many other cities, including Toronto. So it was kind of good to get on the map that way too. So I'm really pleased. I'm hopeful for support, and I thank my seconder once again, Councillor Johnson. I just got a text from the mayor that said I'm very long-winded, so I'm glad that he's watching, and so he knows we don't like to end planning committee meetings before 11 o'clock, and this is our last item, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you,
yes,
Councillor.
we do.
Is there any further discussion from committee on this? Councillor Pearson.
Sorry, I couldn't type fast enough in the chat. I want to thank Councillor Farr certainly for his long-winded information today, and certainly appreciate the shout out to a business in my ward, actually, that those are the business owners that started as one of the residents in my ward. I'm very proud of them. And, you know, if anything, at the end of the day, this really allowed people through COVID, which was a tremendously difficult time, continues to be for restaurant owners, allowed their patrons to continue to frequent and at least keep some communication with other people around them. So I'm really proud of them. I'm very supportive of this and thrilled that there were no complaints and issues. So very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. So before the mayor texts everybody, all in favor or denied or opposed? Definitely tons of appreciation from businesses in Ward 8 for the work of Julia Davis. She's very good at her job and very much appreciated. Have everybody? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we're done. So I think that's it. We have a general managers. Where am I here? Flipping back to 13.1, general manager's update. General Manager Thorne, do you have anything to add?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no update for committee today.
You got 27 minutes to kill. Are you sure? Okay. So that's adjournment then. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor or opposed? I'm going to get a waffle.
Excellent job, Mr. Chairman.
Well done, Chair. Not a record, but close.
Not bad.
Everybody's a critic.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone.